Gonna stumble through another upgrade on my Mk1 Audi TT. It's a 2001. Today we're gonna start doing adjustable rear control arms. I'm gonna replace the lower control arms with adjustable ones that will hopefully help my alignment specialist dial in my camber so that I stop eating through tires. This should be fun. Alrighty. So the first thing you're going to do is bust out your floor jack. I always use the jack pads that are underneath the Audi to go ahead and jack the car up. If you're not using power tools, always a good idea to loosen your lug bolts before you start jacking up the car. I always do that anyway, even though I am using power tools. Your lug bolts are 17 millimeter. Well, mine are. So yeah, loosen those guys about one dugga at least before you start jacking the car up. And then you can do the rest of the duggas once you got the tire off the ground. So we're gonna go ahead and get that wheel off of there. I went ahead and asked on my forum if there was any recommendations for a jack stand point, because I always like to at least have a jack stand under there for safety measures. What I would ideally like to do is, usually what I would do is, and I can't remember where I did it because I replaced the entire rear suspension back here. I had, I replaced the struts, I replaced the springs, so I had the whole car off the ground. If I remember correctly, and I really should remember because it was only like 4 months ago, I think I had the car on 4 jack stands. So I can't remember where I had jack stands back here, but the only place I could figure right now is basically this cross member here that is essentially the spring perch. But I actually did put a jack stand there and lowered the car onto it, and I noticed right away that takes load from the suspension. So you're articulating the suspension with a jack stand there, and I didn't want to do that because I'm gonna take a bolt out of right here, which is directly attached to that whole thing. So I feel like it's a bad idea to have load on a piece that I'm gonna take a piece off of, Lord knows. So yeah, I asked on my Audi TT Repairs and Tips Facebook group if anybody had recommendations for where to put a jack stand back here. I think for now though, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do one side at a time. So I'm starting on the passenger side. I'm gonna jack it up. I'm gonna put a jack stand under here for just JIC purposes, not actually touching, not actually bearing load on it at all. It's just gonna be there in case my jack should fail. Heaven forbid, it doesn't crush me underneath the car. The jack stand will just catch it, and hopefully I'll live. And that's what jack stands are for anyway. Alright, so as you can see, I ran out of daylight because I'm dumb, and I just started this project at like fucking 7 o'clock and the sun set at 7:30. So that's okay though, because I almost missed a crucial step in prepping for any project where you're going to be taking pieces off the bottom of the car. So I went ahead and soaked all the bolts in some pea blaster. So they'll soak overnight, and we'll get back at this in the morning, no big deal. Alrighty, so we're back out here with plenty of daylight. Got the wheel off. What I've opted to do as far as jacking the car up for this particular job is I'm just going with the jack itself right at the rubber jack pad. So that's nice and safe. And then I'm just gonna do jack stands under, but not actually supporting, right here at the suspension arm. So they're just gonna be there for just in case the jack should fail, which it's actually been holding the car up all night, so I feel like it's very safe. Don't have anything to worry about. From work I've done on the car before, / what some of the people in my forum were saying, another option is you could jack the car up at this frame point here. So get your jack under the car, up under this frame point here. That'll raise the whole car, both sides, and then you could put it down on the rubber pads on the jack stands. As long as you get it to land on the jack stands simultaneously, it should be safe. But it's kind of sketchy putting the weight of the car on jack stands on those rubber pads. Especially in the front, I don't think so much in the rear it's as much a concern, but in the front, if you try to do that sort of thing, you could actually wind up pushing your pads up into the floor, which I'll show you that, because I actually did that one time in the front, and one of my pads on the passenger side, I think, is pushed up into the floor a little bit. But anyway, so I also, like I said, I soaked the nuts and bolts in pea blaster overnight. I'll spray some fresh pea blaster on them just so that they're like actively being lubricated as I start to turn on them. But we've got a nut and bolt setup on these on both sides. It's a nut and bolt on both sides. So nut and bolt up there, nut and bolt back here. So we're gonna need a wrench to hold the nut, and I'm probably gonna use a socket to break the bolt away, and then back it the rest of the way out with my impact gun. I usually like to do the braking by hand. It just gives you a better feel for when you're actually getting that breakaway done. Probably 18 or 19 millimeter. All right, so they are 18 millimeter. So we're gonna go ahead and get a wrench on one side and our socket on the other. Let's see if we can get this to break away. Very good. Easy enough. Back it the rest of the way out with the impact. Okay, that's one side. Now we just got to get the other. Kind of an awkward angle here that I'm at. Got a good camera angle, so let's see if I can do this. I don't think I'm going to be able to get the impact in here, so I'm going to just do this one by hand. I could probably get the 3/8 inch drive impact wrench in there, but not the gun, and the impact wrench doesn't have as much torque, so I don't even know, even with it loosened, I think it's pretty damn weak. I don't use it for much. These are just plastic shrouds that you take off if I really wanted to get the impact thing in here, but this is backing out pretty easily, so no big deal, just some patience. Alright, I've got the nut off, so I just pull that out. Just spin it. There we go. And yeah, it just dropped right out of there. Easy peasy. Okay, so here we have this is the OEM lower control arm as it came out of the car. This is the top side, this is the bottom side, front, rear. So here's the replacement one, basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line up the holes, and then this nut down here and also this nut up here will both loosen so that you can, that's the adjustability you've got. I'm just gonna put it in lined up with the original one, and then when I take it to get the alignment readjusted, they can they'll be able to adjust the shaft to actually pull things into spec. Okay, I've got the first control arm all set up and ready to go in. Just wanted to point out, for the sake of telling you the right way to do the job, the nuts and bolts that hold these control arms in are technically one-time use. The bolt is what's known as a stretch bolt. The nut actually has a nylon locking washer to it. So both of those parts should be replaced when you're replacing. And if you take them out of the car, you put new ones back in. I'm not gonna do that. Don't be like me. Basically, the way a stretch bolt works is you torque it down to a specific torque and then turn it one more quarter turn after that. So in this case, the torque spec is 70 Newton meters plus a quarter turn. So once you get it to 70 Newton meters, you do an extra quarter turn. The threads on the bolt stretch to basically lock the bolt in place. So then if you undo the torque setting, the bolt is basically spent and you should replace it. I'm taking a risk. Don't do it. Okay, so we got the passenger side lower adjustable control arm all bolted up. We did torque it down to the correct specs, so it is 70 Newton meters plus a quarter turn. So what you do is get your impact wrench, your torque wrench on there and torque it to the 70 Newton meters, and then I just put a regular socket wrench on there and pulled it tight one additional quarter turn so that it is in torque spec. We're gonna go over to the driver's side and do the same thing. The only difference is you can see right here, there's just a little lever that comes down. It is for the self-adjusting headlights. So that's gonna be the only difference. It's the only thing I'll show you over here. Is I'll just take that off of this control arm before I do anything else. And then I'll kind of tuck it out of the way, and after I get the new control arm on there, I will fasten it back on. Okay, we're just gonna remove the headlight level sensor from the driver's side lower control arm here. It's just two 10mm nuts that hold this bracket on. Really easy. Thanks to a squirt of pea blaster, they just came right off. And then we'll pull the sensor part off of the bracket. I'm just kind of wiggle it down the threads there, and then I'm just gonna tuck that right up here. Upper control arm holds it up there pretty handy. And then I think I'm gonna leave the bracket where it is, because I figured there'd be a nice mark on here from it sitting, but there's not really. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna leave the bracket right there. We're gonna take the control arm out, and then when I line this control arm up with the new control arm, I'll make sure that the bracket gets moved over to the same spot so that we know it's in the right spot. Alright, so I've got the new control arm lined up with the old control arm, and like I said, we're just gonna scoot this guy over to here. Gonna make a mark on here because I don't know how easy it's gonna be to just pop this over here, because as you can see, the old control arm is square and quite a bit thicker than the new control arm. So I don't know how well the bracket is just gonna bolt right back on here. Hopefully it stays reasonably well. We'll see. I'll get the new control arm in there, and then probably take a little video of me tightening this back down onto here to show you how it fits. Alright, I've got the new control arm in, and I've got everything torqued down already. So the only thing left to do is to put this headlight level sensor back into place. I showed you when I took it off. It's just this little gizmo here hanging from the car, this little bracket over here. I've got the spot marked where it should go. So we're just gonna put that bad boy back on there. Take our 10mm bolts and thread them back on. And tighten her up. So my only concern here is this bracket is obviously not built for this control arm. The old control arm was quite a bit wider and square. This one's pretty narrow and tubular. So, I don't know if this is even gonna, boy. Yep, this is gonna be a problem. So I'm gonna have to come up with something else to hold this bracket in place, because the old clamp is just not gonna do it. Stay tuned. Okay, here's the solution I'm going with for the bracket that holds the headlight level sensor. Metal strapping kit that you can get at any automotive store. Basically comes with this spool of strap and then a couple nuts and bolts. So you can see here I've got it cut to fit and wrapped around the control arm, and I'm just going to tighten it down. It's probably not metric because most generic things you buy at automotive stores aren't, in America anyway. I don't know, but I got it all lined up to where the old where it was on the old control arm versus where it is on the new control arm. And I don't know. It's still not very tight. I think maybe we'll I think I'll grab a pair of needle nose pliers and try and pinch that around, because it's all bolted in now and it still kind of wants to slide back and forth. So I think I'll just grab a pair of needle nose pliers and squeeze this clamp in. It's gonna have to work. I don't know how important this thing is. It's just, from what I understand, wherever it sits determines pretty much how the headlights aim. This is only a feature if you have the ballast headlights. What are they called? So you might not even have this on your car, but the Mark 1 225 Roadsters, they definitely have this because they have the ballast headlights, and those ballast headlights have to have a level sensor to keep them level compared to the ride height of the car. So that's why you can definitely tell that these control arms have a lot to do with the ride height of the car. That's pretty much why we're throwing in adjustable ones, because we threw on the lowered suspension. So the way the control arms sit are affecting pretty much everything else in the suspension now too. So we're pretty much done. We're just gonna, like I said, I'm gonna make sure that strap is tightened down so it stays in place where it is, and I'm gonna throw the wheel back on here and set her back down off the jacks, and that's it. Adjustable control arms installed. So there you go, we got both lower control arms on, adjustable. Not 100% sure about the headlight level sensor. I guess we'll see how it goes. I haven't checked it out or anything. Wait until it gets dark out and then I'll turn the headlights on and see if I even notice anything. I don't know, it looks kind of wonky to me. That strapping kit's definitely a ghetto rigged type of thing. So we'll see how it goes. Next step is take it back to the Audi dealership to get the alignment all set, and we'll see how she does.